Alrighty, guys, welcome back to another episode of Ranting and Raving. This time it's episode two. I got my good friend here, Chesco, again. We decided to run it back. And this time, unlike the movies, it's a little bit more, heart to heart in a sense, more serious this time. But first off, before we get into any and all of that, Chesco, how you doing, man?
I'm just here so I don't get fined.
Sorry, it's in the contract. You're still gonna get fined.
I know, I know. So, you know, I'll do what I can. But I'm very excited about this topic, and I'm excited to fill out a couple more hours of my community service through recording this. If you're telling me this is all I got to do to fulfill my crimes against humanity, then
Actually, you're here for 10 years. So
fuck.
that
I'm always happy to be here. Always happy to here to talk to you, my man. So, what's the topic for today?
now this one, we're in this game called life, right? So just like with any and everything, this question is, what is your biggest what if moment?
Oh wow. That's a fun question, one that I think about a lot. Uh, because I think it's just for anyone who has time on their hands that isn't, you know, alpha totally like lock in. I can't waste a single second of my time. Yeah, there are times where you're looking at your life, maybe you came up short in certain senses, or something happened that was totally out of your control, and you feel really regretful that it happened to you, maybe feeling a little sorry for yourself. You start to play the what if game, and to me
Yeah.
that's always like a mental game where you kind of lay out a timeline of like, oh, if this happened or if that happened. But to me, my biggest what if is, what if the timeline of my life just ended much earlier?
Yeah.
And I've talked about this with you, or like alluded it on the pod a couple of times, but it's my biggest what if is a night where I could have messed everything up. And trigger warning to anyone who, you know, may need it. But yeah, this is a night where contemplated ending my life. And it was a very interesting point in my life. It was a time where it was my first year of college. High school was an isolating experience for me. It wasn't the best. And then it goes to college, and college for me, it's like high school is a or middle school is a bubble, high school is a bigger bubble, and then college is like this bigger bubble that's so thin that you're so close to seeing like what the real world is like. And
Yeah.
that giant expansion was a lot for me, and I was failing classes and I wasn't doing great. And then I actually flunked out of the first community college I went to. So I went back home, and it wasn't fulfilling. I wasn't fulfilling what I needed to do. And so I was like, oh, the best thing to do would be to kind of just end it here. And I think that'd be great. And like I recorded these last little messages for people that I wanted to hear from, people that I wanted them to hear from me. And yeah, I think about that night a lot because, again, what ifs? You're talking about, these are things that are like sliding window moments that, had one little thing changed, maybe sets you on a completely different path. And it's not necessarily a what if on my life, it's a what if on the people I love, the people. I wouldn't have met you. This was before I met you. I wouldn't have been able to move out of the city I was from. I'm from the Bay Area, small little town called Vallejo, and now I'm moved out here to LA, and I'm working in an industry that's kind of tough, but also that I've been interested in. So I'm very blessed in that sense. And there's a lot of things that I just look in my life and I'm like, damn, I wouldn't have experienced that or known that person. Or, granted, there's also things where it's like, oh, I wouldn't have experienced that, but that which fucking sucks. But
Yeah.
and on the rough nights, like that's where my mind takes me. But yeah, my what if is a night that I'm safe to say would have had big effects for sure. But I'm at the end of the day, I'm glad that it ended up being this way. So yeah, man, that's my what if. How about you?
Man. Well, my biggest what if, it comes more or less from just a career standpoint.
Yeah, which is
My
very important,
biggest,
by the way, which
it
I
is.
think a lot of people underrate how, or not underrate, but play down. Like they try to make it sound like, oh, you're just you're thinking about your careers, but you know, like your career is
That determines a lot.
it determines a lot. It shouldn't define you, but
Yep.
also in a perfect world, we would be able to do what we want to do and what we're good at and be able to make a living off of it. So yeah, sorry. All that to say is like that's a very big decision and part of your life, you know?
So my biggest what if is what if I didn't stop acting? So one thing about me is I took acting in high school. I didn't take it seriously a little bit towards my junior year. I always thought like my of course at the time my goal was all right, I'm gonna be an actor. Just rinkety dink. And there was that was my junior year is where I started taking plays a little bit more seriously. I was in excuse me, a musical called Little Shop of Horrors. I played Audrey too. She or the it's like the villain of the play to Plant. And so voice singing that was on me. And you know, my mom and other people would praise me for that role. And I would hear people like, oh, whoever's doing Audrey 2 is doing a good job, et cetera, et cetera. And I was like, huh, okay. Later on, a couple months later, I would do a play called Roosters. It was in this thing called UIL, and at that time, it was a competition-based thing. And me, I'm very competitive, right? I love sports and all that stuff. However, actually being in it when you know it's a competition, that's where I'm like, oh shoot, like now I gotta step it up. And so at that point, I was like, okay, so we get into Roosters. And we go, you know, we're always upgrading or updating everything. Sure enough, basically, to get a little bit closer to the finish line, starting off, I get honorable mention for All-Star Cast as one of the awards. And at that time, as somebody that took acting more seriously and was, I guess you could say it was my first year technically, hearing someone be like, hey, you know, you didn't make the All-Star list exactly, but you're a close consideration for it. You're like, oh shoot, like dang, maybe I got something here.
Mm.
So hearing that, you know, was, you know, like okay. And not to mention we would advance to the second round. However, a couple of days later is when COVID would start. And so that
I feel like
just
there's a lot of stories that have like a pivot point of, and then COVID happened. I know I have definitely have my fair share of
yeah.
that. So yeah, yeah.
Yeah, so unfortunately that derailed everything. And I'm like, okay, I finished on my junior year and I go my senior year online. And at that time, I just didn't feel like I had a senior year. It was just like another year. And I tried acting there and it didn't hit the same, maybe because it's online and you gotta be different online compared to where you're in person. It's a little bit easier. You're able to have reactions, this and that.
Yeah.
And so I was like, okay, maybe acting isn't, you know, my main focus because at that time I had gotten a scholarship to one of the colleges here in San Antonio for acting. And I was like, okay, I might go with it, stick with it and see where it goes. That it didn't happen. I would go on to do radio, kind of broadcasting, trying to be in that field with sports and things like that. So I guess basically to kind of sum up everything is what if I didn't give up acting? What if I just sticked with the senior year? I would eventually end up in person school after you know senior year in college. Maybe if I stayed with it, would I have still been an actor? Would I
Mm.
even be on this podcast right now?
Ooh,
You know, it's one of
yeah.
those like graded like those things where it's like because like I'm not trying to brag, but I got a lot of you know praise, and with that I was like I had momentum, I had that confidence, like okay, like there's potential for it to be there. Now I have some good friends now that still do acting and kind of seeing their journey. One of them's actually gotten awards and things like that, and I'm happy for her. So it's like, what if I was there too? Like, what if I just sticked with acting despite it being rough senior year? Like I said, would I even be in Texas? Who knows? LA?
Hey man, if you do end up in LA somehow, you
New
know,
York? Who
there's a
knows?
place for you to be at.
What do
Yeah,
we have
and
met though?
that is
Oh,
interesting. That is
that's
interesting. You
it.
know, that does bring up the conversation about canon events, which is
Yeah.
something that Into the Spider-Verse brought up. And I don't know. I would like to think in a weird way it would be funny if we met but in a different way. Like we run into each other in LA in person, which
Yeah.
just for some backstory for the viewer, is we met over online on a previous channel. I had been a part of Our Thoughts podcast, and he, reached out as someone who watched my videos, who liked it, and I just maybe finds out like we just have a lot of common interests. So I would have liked to
Yep.
imagine at some point, in some way, I don't know. It would have happened every anyway, but I mean that's part of what this part of this conversation is like it's they always say it's like you hold one thing in each hand, you hold two things.
Yep.
As one is like the weight of like, damn, I really wish this went differently. But then two, but I'm also glad that
Yep.
it happened because it took me down this route, and now I can't even really, it's hard to imagine the whole butterfly effect of these things wouldn't have been in my life, these things would have. So yeah, so that's sort of the conversation. I would love to hear from people who come across this video. What is your biggest what if?
Yeah.
And
It
like
can
what
be
are the
anything.
yeah, and like what are like the biggest factors that lead you to contemplate on that particular what if? Like for me, it's literally like life or death, and
Yeah.
not just like what if, but also what happens to the people that I would have left behind and or had never met. And for you, it's a whole different avenue of your life, a whole new pathway. So
Yeah. Like, what if
yeah.
I wasn't a Cowboys fan? Like, would I know what heartbreak is still? Like, you know?
Maybe you would have, but not to that extent.
Not
Because
to that extent, yeah.
my God.
Well, it's been another great episode. This one a little bit more serious. You're getting to know us a little bit more. But yeah, it's another great episode. See you guys on the next.